Somebody commented recently that it's a bad look to call out other martial artists. And the case in point, right, it was just provably factually wrong information. And that brings up a question that, really a debate that I've had with friends of mine in the past, and honestly is going to be an ongoing debate probably forever. Let me start with something on the positive side, right? One of my Kung Fu brothers is a Dan Inosanto instructor and everything like that. And in the time that he has spent with Sifu Dan, he has mentioned that when asked why Dan doesn't speak out against others, he said, "Oh, there's no time for that. I've got training to do," which is really, honestly, like, I love Dan Inosanto. I really do think he's the most important living martial artist, and he doesn't have that many years left, so enjoy him while you can. But the idea that that you shouldn't be calling somebody out is a little bit of a cop-out. And I mean that with respect to Sifu Dan. Not everybody needs to get into heated debates over things, and there's certainly time and place for certain things. In fact, on my side of the debate specifically on calling out frauds, is I've said that, like, it's like, call it out when you see it, but I don't think it's necessary to go hunting for frauds. Some people make a, like, damn near a hobby out of trying to track down people who are peddling fake certificates and things like that. Now, here's the thing. If somebody is causing actual harm, right? If somebody has gone beyond fraud and is engaging in actually dangerous behavior or is abusing students or whatever like that, for sure, call that out, try to rectify that best you can. And yes, you can say, look, the financial harm of fraud and everything, for sure, right? This is why, like, it's not exactly a cut and dry situation. Do you need to go hunting them though? And here's the problem that I have. The problem that I have with it is that at some point, when all you're looking for is negatives, you start seeing everybody in negative light, and all of a sudden you are on like a purity crusade to make sure that absolutely everybody is on point all the time, and never wrong about anything. And that becomes problematic, right? So there's a fine line, right? When you see harm being done, like, look, we're martial artists. We are literally training for the art of protection. And if you see harm being done and you are within your legal rights and moral wherewithal to do something about it, by all means, do it. Again, I just don't feel like it is necessary or even appropriate to try to, like, make a career of going and hunting these people down. Now, to bring it back to the original comment that sparked this video, and where I'm coming from is also that, like, well, it's what I just said, right? When you see something that's wrong, you say that something is wrong. And if you have the data to back up why something is wrong, then, go ahead and do it. A great case in point right now going on in the fitness side of things, Dr. Milo Wolf, brandly new christened PhD in sports science, hit the ground running and everything like that. And he has actually started doing some videos where he is commenting on other trainers who are not really in the evidence-based space, who are not researchers and really don't have the credentials for that, and basically saying the good and bad of what they're doing, right? And in a sense, you would be like, oh, he's calling these people out, but he's not. He's critiquing the negative things that they're doing and saying things to rectify the information. Now, look, does good information outbalance bad information? Like, almost certainly it doesn't, because unfortunately what happens is as wrong information or straight up like lies and fraud make their way through the uneducated community, people just pass information along. Nobody ever goes and looks for the retraction or the correction or whatnot. We see this in the news media all the time, right? Something will make front page headlines, and then they issue a retraction on page 87 in fine print at the bottom of the page. Nobody ever reads it because it's buried behind an advertisement. And stuff like that happens all the time, right? It's even worse with scientific papers because almost nobody reads the papers in the first place, and fewer people still go after the retractions or the corrections. And so we need to make kind of a distinction between like, look, I'm calling out bad behavior or incorrect information versus I'm just shitting on somebody, right? And there's a difference between that. And again, my biggest problem with the whole calling people out thing is the fact that it eventually becomes this purity crusade, right? And I mentioned this just a minute ago, right? But it becomes this purity crusade of everything I don't like is bullshit. Everything I don't like is fraud. Everything I don't like is a McDojo. And that's just not true. Wim Demir, phenomenal, at his peak was ranked third in the world for Sanda. The guy's a phenomenal martial artist, a great coach, all that. And Wim Demir made a comment about jumping kicks, a video of a guy doing a flying side kick in the middle of like a street fight and it working, right, and having the intended effect. And he said, look, the thing about techniques with limited use is not that they have no use. And this is true for so many things. It becomes too easy when you get on these witch hunts to start looking at even things of limited utility as being bullshit. And that's just not how the world works. So, like, for example, right, there's a Facebook group called Bullshit Martial Arts, and the favorite whipping boy in there is usually Aikido. And people are like, well, Aikido doesn't work. And the fact is that I've talked to bouncers and stuff who've made Aikido work, but it's of limited utility. It works in a certain context. It's fine. And they do some things really well. Their break falling is basically second to none. The problem is that it's just a very incomplete art that really does not address many of the things outside of the specific context that it's useful for. And that's fine if you keep it in context, or if you are just doing it as an intellectual, academic, recreational pursuit, fine, right? But if you're looking to get like elite training out of it, you're probably not going to get it. But the thing is that, again, that limited utility doesn't make it no utility. It doesn't make it bullshit, and it certainly doesn't make it fraud. So we have to be careful, right? And I've said this many times before, but I'm going to say it again. You have to be really, really careful with claims of fraud, because fraud actually has legal precedent for legal compensation. So if you claim somebody has fraud, you have to be really careful, because they can countersue you for defamation if you don't have a case. So you have to be really, really, really careful throwing around a term like fraud. And look, if you don't like something, you don't like something. You're free to say that you don't like something. But you don't need to go and pointing and say that is fraudulent, that is fake, anything that's going to get you in serious legal trouble. That's not good. And again, on the other side of it, and the thing that got somebody mad at me, right, was just calling out wrong information and then making the observation that the person in question generally does not do, deep investigative journalism. They generally are cherry picking information to build a narrative. And I'm not mentioning names and everything right now because I'm done with that conversation. But, it is bad to cherry pick information to fulfill a narrative. It is a different thing if the information at hand supports what you're already doing. It's another thing to pull out specific things, ignoring the rest of it, that may be refuting what you're doing, or at least calling into question what you're doing, just so you can fulfill a narrative. And that is a really common thing, especially in the YouTube and social media space. Everybody's looking for their 15 minutes of fame, and some people already have it, and despite having their 15 minutes of fame, are no more reliable, than a 5-year-old telling you about this cool thing that he saw. It's sad that you don't have to be reliable, accurate information in order to be popular, but that's just how that game works, because the general masses don't pay attention to what's right and what's wrong. And look, most people are probably not even like outright lying. They probably have just made up their mind. They are probably subconsciously cherry picking information that supports their claim, and they may not even be aware of information that refutes what they're doing, right? It's not always malicious. And I've said this in a video prior too, right? Is you can be wrong and not be lying. And like, that's okay. We're all going to be wrong. Like, you have to be allowed to be wrong because you're going to be wrong. Nobody knows everything, and nobody is capable of having all their information straight before they open their mouth. It's just not how reality works. So in that regard, right, we want to be careful about who we go hunting. We want to be careful about how much fraud and bullshit we're calling, and we want to make sure that we've got our ducks in a row before we actually open our mouths. And we also have to allow a little grace for being wrong, and we should also have the fortitude to admit when we ourselves are wrong. And that's really the thick of it, right? But on the other side of it, right, if you see information that's blatantly wrong, make a point of it. Say it. Say it to the person, or say it publicly, however that dynamic ends up going. Scott Sonnen, formerly of TACFIT, again, perhaps a questionable human being, blocked me on Facebook because he was crowing about organic foods, this and that, and then I posted links to studies saying, nope, that's wrong. Just is what it is. And that kind of stuff happens, right? And currently right now, everybody's big thing is seed oils are bad, seed oils are bad. And when you look at guys like, say, Dr. Elaine Norton, who is by no means some establishment shill, is out there saying, when you look at the human randomized controlled trials, outcomes are the same, especially once you equate diets and everything. Seed oils don't matter. They just don't matter, right? So at the end of the day, you can take any study and villainize somebody. You can take any piece of information and spin a narrative around it, as long as you're willing to ignore the rest of the data. But if you're not, if you want to be honest, and if you want to do your due diligence, which you should, and yes, that may mean that it takes longer for content to come out, and that may mean that you can't just engage in the debate because you don't know enough yet. And that's okay. It is better to be quiet and gather information than it is to speak out of turn. So again, if you see harm being done, or if you have direct evidence, like immediately at hand, especially that somebody is wrong about something, speak up, say something, right? Especially if harm is being done. Martial artists are protectors. We are supposed to be protectors. By all means, protect those who cannot protect themselves. So if you see that physical or financial harm is being done to people, by all means, say something. Because we don't want to let rampant actual fraud, which kind of requires malice, requires, I know that I'm telling you something wrong, right? Being snake oil salesman. If you see that stuff, by all means, call it out. I just don't feel like you need to go hunting. And the same thing, if you see wrong information, point it out. But if you call out wrong information, make sure that you come with your homework done, that you have sources, that you have, if you're online, that you have links. And if you're not online, that you can cite off the sources that you're going, or at least write them down for somebody to go look up. Never, ever, ever just say, oh, just Google it, it's out there. That's not an argument. In fact, just Google it basically means you're not a serious person, and I'm not going to take anything you say seriously. You have to come to the debate with your homework done, with your sources. And look, if you forget a source or something, you say, look, I found this thing, let me know afterwards and I'll look it up for you. That's fine, right? But seriously, this is a touchy debate. Should we call out fraud? Like, when there's harm being done, yes. If it's just something you don't like, don't worry about it. So I guess that's all I have to say on that, right? Have some grace, let people be wrong. You're going to be wrong too. It happens. Don't be afraid to correct yourself, and absolutely don't be afraid to admit when you're wrong. And same here, right? I'm not excluding myself. I'm wrong all the time. But I tend to be slower to speak on things because I want to make sure that I know what I'm saying, right? Being careful how you speak and how you address things is very important. So I am done ranting, and I will talk to you guys later. Good journey. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, share. Check us out on our other socials, and please head over to blacksunboxing.com to get a little more info, including how to contact us. Furthermore, if you are in the Phoenix area, please feel free to stop in, say hi, join in for a class, whatever. Also, if you ever see us cite sources or just for additional content, please check out our Substack. That is where we put all of the sources we use in our videos and is a major part of this. Plus, it serves as a membership platform for long distance learning and for people who would like to support us but aren't local. We would greatly appreciate it if you signed up. Even just the free membership helps us out a lot. All right, I will see you guys in the next video. Good journey.